Welcome. This is video 2 in a 3-part series on resistance training and healthy aging. In the first video, we discussed why strength training is so important for muscle, metabolic health, brain health, and long-term independence. If you haven't watched the first video yet, I strongly recommend doing so because it explains the reasons behind everything we're discussing here. In this video, we will focus on when to do resistance training, including common questions about carbohydrates, proteins, recovery, and how often you really need to train. The goal is to make this simple, evidence-based, and practical, especially for adults over 40 or 50. Let's begin. Video 2. When to do resistance training, compiled by Dr. Siva Navaratnam and ChatGPT, my education partner. I would also like to thank my children, Dinan and Jazara, for helping me in the production of this video. Before we go further, let's address some common myths about strength training. Many people believe that you must eat carbohydrates before lifting weights, that you must take a large protein shake immediately after, or that training every single day is better. These ideas mainly come from endurance sports and bodybuilding culture, not from research on healthy aging, metabolic health, or long-term function. Do we need carbs before strength training? For most people, especially those managing insulin resistance, carbohydrate loading before strength training is unnecessary. Fed versus fasted strength training. The most important factor is consistency, not whether you train fed or fasted. Protein timing versus protein amount. People focus too much on timing and underestimate how much protein they need across the whole day. Daily protein intake matters most. How much protein is needed? One of the most common questions we get is, how much protein do we actually need? For people doing resistance training, research suggests a range about 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of ideal body weight per day. It is important to use your ideal body weight, not your current weight, especially if you're overweight, to avoid over or underestimating your needs. As we get older, particularly after 40 or 50, our muscle become less responsive to protein. This is why aiming towards the higher end of this range is often beneficial. The key message is that total daily protein intake matters far more than exact timing. Consistency across the day is what supports muscle strength and healthy aging. Use ideal body weight. A very important point when calculating protein intake is to use your ideal body weight, not your current body weight. This is especially important if someone is overweight or obese, because protein needs are related to lean mass, not excess body fat. For example, if your ideal body weight is around 70 kilograms, then your protein target should be roughly 110 to 150 grams per day, depending on your age, activity level, and goals. Using ideal body weight helps prevent both underestimating protein, which can lead to muscle loss, and overestimating protein, which can unnecessary and difficult to sustain. The goal is to keep things accurate, practical, and sustainable. Do you need a huge protein shake? Protein supplements are tools of convenience, not a necessity. whole foods work just as well. Muscle grows during rest. This is a very important concept that many people misunderstand. Resistant training actually creates small amounts of micro damage in the muscle fibers. The muscle does not grow while you're exercising. Growth happens during recovery, when the muscle repairs and rebuilds these fibers stronger than before. If we don't allow enough rest, this repair process cannot fully occur and progress slow or even reverses. This is why rest days are not wasted days. They are an essential part of strength training, especially as we get older. The 24 to 48 hour recovery rule. After resistant training, muscles need time to recover. As a general rule, it's best to rest the same muscle group for at least 24 hours before training it again. Many adults, especially as we get older, actually benefit from closer to 48 hours of recovery. This allows muscle repair, nervous system recovery, and reduces the risk of injury or burnout. Training more frequently is not necessarily better. Training smarter with adequate recovery leads to better long-term results. How often is enough? Another very common question is how often do we actually need to do resistance training? The evidence shows that resistance training at least twice per week is enough to gain meaningful health and strength benefits. This is what we call the minimum effective dose, the smallest amount of training that still delivers real benefits. You can train more often if you enjoy it and recover well, but more is optional, not required. For most adults, especially those over 40 or 50, consistency matters far more than frequency. 2 well-planned sessions per week can make a big difference. Let's summarize the key take-home messages from this video. First, there is no need to eat carbohydrates before resistance training for most people. Second, focus on meeting your total daily protein target. Timing is far less important than consistency. Third, allow your muscles time to recover. Aim for 24 to 48 hours of rest between training the same muscle groups. And finally, you don't need to train every day. 2 resistant training sessions per week are enough to gain meaningful health and strength benefits. Simple, consistent habits done over time are what leads to long-term results. We want to be very clear and honest about this point. Strength training and independence. There is no single clinical trial that directly proves that strength training prevents admission to nursing homes. However, we do know something very important. Strength training improves physical function. Things like walking, standing from a chair, balance, and overall strength. Loss of these abilities is what often leads to wheelchair use, loss of independence, and eventually institutional care. By improving physical function, strength training reduces the risk factors that are linked to loss of independence. In other words, it may not directly prevent nursing home admission, but it strengthens the abilities that help people stay independent for longer. Thank you very much for watching.